to Takedown Tribe. We're just rolling this train on episode after episode. And today's episode, we have the pleasure of having some great guests here in this upstate New York region in the Big Red. They've had an excellent season this year. We have Coach Mike Gray, second full season in, right, Coach, that we just completed. Of you holding the reins. You've been there many years as a wrestler, a coach, and now the head man when Coach Cole had obviously tutored you for many a year, and he took that West Coast trek, and now you've been holding the reins. And we have one of the All-Americans of the third place team, Mr. Chris Foca, who is the 174-pound 2023 third place NCAA All-American. Sounds pretty good after having some time where you weren't actually able to compete in there and everything like that, I'm sure, Chris. Let me just, for those people that would be watching and have never heard of you guys, let me just give a little bit of backdrop. Coach Gray was a wrestler. I apologize because I don't know your ins and outs of high school. I do know you were a Blair man, right?
No, I actually wrestled. So my brother wrestled at Blair. I was
my bad.
I was the Barton school guy. So I wrestled in the New Jersey State Tournament.
10-4, and our Jersey strong today with you two gentlemen. I'm sure there's Chris came out of Beth Catholic, of course. Or I'm sorry, my bad. Bergen Catholic. That was just a Freudian slip there. But back to Coach. So you wrestled your collegiate time at Del Barton, Jersey man. Went to Cornell. You were an All-American. How many times did you qualify personally?
I was two-time All-American.
Two-time All-American, four-year qualifier or three?
Yeah, no, I was an All-American as a freshman, and then I wrestled Dan Dennis and Tyler Graff in the round of 12, 2 years. I beat him in the regular season and ended up losing to him, unfortunately, in the round of 12, and then I was an All-American as a senior. So.
Yeah. I didn't do my super homework of your time because I think of you more as a coach now. It's getting a little gray, so we're a little bit beyond that, even though I know you're in the room every day. Ultimately, many years as soon as you graduated from going through the ranks of just being there as part of the system to the point where you've been the right-hand man for many years before Coach Cole took that opportunity and knew you were ready, and now you're the head coach with a great staff, of course. So in your time there, you were Coach of the Year this year, finishing out. The team placed third as a team. 4 All-Americans, right? 2 champs, Chris being third, and then Mr. Cardenas got on podium as well, right?
Sure. So, no, I mean, like I said, I've been with the program for almost 18 years, as a student athlete and as a coach. I started off as a volunteer and then moved into, an assistant role and then became the head assistant or the associate head coach and then now the head coach. So when I talk to these guys, I say, I know where you're coming from. I really do, right? From the student athlete perspective all the way up through all the ranks of coaching as well. So definitely I have a unique perspective for our guys and for our coaches, and wouldn't want to be anywhere else for the last 18 years for sure. Yeah,
I know you're definitely I would say you're fully entrenched in the Ithaca way. I know your family and you have just plugged right in there, long before you've been head. But then we'll touch on Chris and circle back to the conversation. So Chris, of course, this year an All-American. From an eligibility point of view, you just finished as a junior, right?
Just finished as a sophomore, so I got
sophomore. The COVID times, you guys know, blurs it off for all us people, but we'll touch on that, the challenges of that. You guys went through as Ivies, and everybody went through it first, and so really, first you've had 2 shots now getting to the dance, and we'll touch on some of that here in a moment. But ultimately, Chris, being able to say, "Hey, I'm an All-American now," I got through that, Coach, just something that came to mind for me. I know you, because you were there, and I always saw as a person just observant behind the scenes, just as a fan in the stands. You lived it. I've heard it from many people. Coach Cole used to be I'd call more of a CEO and delegator. He got the right people in place, a la like yourself, put you guys to task, do your job, and you guys all as a team made it happen. Seems like you're your mindset's that way too, because you've gotten a great staff from day one. Kellen Russell,
Johnny
Coach
Vincent.
Coach Gwiz is a volunteer. Gwistowski being a New York man,
Yep, and then as well.
and Coach Vincent, right?
Yeah.
Officially, Coach Vincent's your associate head coach now, correct?
Yeah, so he's our associate head, and then you have Kellen and obviously Big Gwiz as our volunteer. But no, I mean I think that to succeed, especially in the college wrestling world today, it's no longer just being a wrestling coach, right? You need to have CEO type leadership from the top down, and for me, it's simply having trust in all those guys, right? I have no hesitation whatsoever in trusting of my entire staff to do a great job. So it makes it easy for me to not micromanage because I let them do their thing. I know that they're experts and they're great in many different areas, and I encourage them to take the reins and kind of be great in those areas. So no, I learned a lot from Rob. Obviously, he was kind of at the forefront of this type of leadership in wrestling, right, in college wrestling, and I think that myself working for him for so long and learning firsthand has helped me immensely. Obviously, I've changed things and I made it my own way, but obviously took his groundwork and I guess his system, right, to make it my own. So yeah, no, a lot of successful Division I coaches from Rob's coaching tree, and I think most of the credit, has to do with him giving us the tools to be great.
Yeah, I'm assuming you would think the same way. It seems like today's world, anything you do, coaching specifically, you're managing people, you're dealing with people, relationships, personalities all jive together. It
Absolutely.
seems like you also, as like Chris being a wrestler, is way different than maybe your heavyweight Mr. Furman. Vito has different thoughts, not only their wrestling styles, just their off the mat connections. It seems like some staff will connect, maybe even they're working out with them more, but more even to connect. It seems like you and Coach Cole would kind of defer to who's going to be in the corner, who's going to push the right buttons. Is that kind of how it goes that they're in the room?
We treat everybody individually. I think that's our biggest strengths. You know what I mean? Everybody gets what they need, and it's different than everybody. You know what I mean? So I think that certain guys want certain things, certain guys want other things. So that's the one thing that's unique about our program is, we give the guys what they need, and for us as a coaching staff, we just have to work a little harder because when things are uniform, then you have to be on call less. We'll say, right? It requires more from us, but we're happy to do it because we want to, allow our student athletes to be the best versions of themselves and for them to have the best coaching that they need, the best individual coaching, right? It might take some more time on our end, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I know that, the results kind of speak for themselves, right? Our guys are performing at a super high level and, they have everything they need and they're enjoying themselves and they're really just enjoying the journey, right? So, I think we do a great job in that regard of just treating every person as a person, right? Not treating, the group as a group. Everybody gets what they need.
Yeah. I want to get Chris in here for a minute so he's not just bored here and just bouncing around. But Chris, obviously, I've watched some interviews, watched you wrestle, rewatched some of your matches here leading up to our conversation. You obviously had a great tournament. I mean, you always want the most, obviously, but I would assume, you're we're never happy, fulfilled till you get to the top, but it was pretty good, darn tournament.
Heck of a season.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a heck of a season. Good tournament, but
that's what I mean. 30-2 by the time Saturday night came, right? There in Tulsa. And, just really, I mean, all the All-Americans, from my observation, everyone wrestled well, got where they got. You and Vito both really seemed dialed in. With Coach, I'll touch on, that unique of Yanni's 4-time. Obviously, there was a lot of, we got to get business done in his thing. You and Vito were able to let it fly, which, with just my observation, and even an interview that I saw from, I want to say Flo or somebody after EIWAs, and just talking about, the previous year where it was your first time, didn't perform as well as you might have liked, and your thoughts were like, I'm just going to let it fly. And just my style is just get out there and let it fly. I'm going to throw a thought out of guys I've wrestled. It seems like the program always attracts those, what I'll say, funky guys. There's always a few in the world. There's always the funk, but what I'll say, unorthodox, unique. Like when I watch you wrestle, I think back to Dylan Palacio, Brennan Momack, those kind of unorthodox positions, going after your own style. If you want to touch on that, how that related to the tournament this year, Chris, and Coach might elaborate. That's how I view you as, previous alumni.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great compliment. But, I mean, I've held myself mentally to that All-American standard. The second half of last season didn't go the way I planned. I don't know, just some things didn't go my way. I got a concussion, hit my head a couple times, had to take some time off, and I felt like that really added up. And by the time nationals came around, I was just in my own head and was just a shell of myself. But after Detroit, I met with Mike, and we went over a new training plan to just make myself the best that I could be. I ran all summer and kept my weight down, dieted right, and just carried that through the season. So, yeah, it's great. I mean, I felt like I was just firing at the tournament. I was having a great time too, which makes it a lot more fun to do when you're enjoying it out there and you're really looking forward to wrestling each match and like wrestling under the lights. It's way different than just being nervous and tense out there. It's a much better feeling for sure. But yeah, it's definitely nice to finally have that All-American accolade to my name.
Yeah. Coach, well, I mean, him personally, his performance, for you to elaborate on beyond what you've said already for this particular NCAAs.
I mean, I think I couldn't be, I guess, more proud of him because of what he said, right? He looked himself in the mirror after Detroit and was like, I don't like what happened here, right? And I think that there's a lot of guys that do that right after the tournament, right? But they're not putting miles in August in 100 degrees, right? You know what I mean? They're not out there, they don't have the staying power to keep that motivation. And that's what Chris did all year. You know what I mean? I think that he was able to keep that motivation, and he put together a great season, right? And there was adverse times during the season, but he just stuck with it and continued to believe and knew that the prior work that he put in was going to win the day for him, right? And that's what you want to see in all your guys, right? The ability to be honest with yourself, right? The ability to look yourself in the mirror and critique yourself and have that and take that to heart and have that motivate you, right? And that's exactly what he did. And then he, once he had that motivation, what's next, right? He worked his butt off, right? He worked his butt off. He went above and beyond. So, one thing I appreciate these guys is hard work never goes by the wayside, right? So you're going to get what's coming to you. It might not always be what you want in the moment. And for Chris, it was pretty dang close, right? He was one match away from being a national champ. But those things are going to come back to you. And I think that, he's a testament to, kind of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and, not liking an outcome and changing it yourself and really being locked in and motivated to come back, the next year, and succeed. So, like I said, super proud of I think the development more than anything, right? The wrestling is awesome. It's fun to watch him. He has that unique style like you're talking about, but I think the individual development, right? The development that he's going to now, take with him once he's done wrestling and when he becomes a, father and helping his children, get through tough times. He's done it, right? It's with him now because he lived it and he found a way to make himself exponentially better from one year to the next. So really cool to see what you want to see as a coach. That's what it's all about. You know what I mean? Taking third is fun and all that stuff, but watching the guy become, the best version of himself over 12 months is pretty neat.
I know, as you know, Coach, Chris knows, we all see it, on that big of a stage or really any tournament. Even if you have a high school tournament, you have a big goal and you have that unfortunate, you didn't quite get through that one last obstacle, in your case, to slam into the finals. So you had that setback. and you have to take a breath and like mentally, okay, what are we going to do now? I mean, to me, you just turned a page and you went after it because it never is easy. You still had a competitive Nelson Brand Maya you went through, and then a previous national champ that you battled and everyone's battled for the third, fourth, went to overtime with Mekhi Lewis. It'd be very easy, and your average fan wouldn't blame like, oh, but it's somehow to get a little down about something. But you made it happen where you did, you're as close as you could get given that obstacle that, semis didn't get quite through. Right, Coach? I mean, or Chris, either one, really.
Yeah, good, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, still like you were saying, it's a great feeling. Becoming an All-American might be some people's goals, of course, but as great of a feeling as it is, I still fell short. I mean, I didn't go there to lose. I wanted to be a national champ. So moving forward, I mean, I feel like regardless of that one setback in the semis, I do have a pretty decent amount of momentum going for the last year now. So just going to keep that going for another year, train, refine skills, and try to come back for the 24 season and throw my hat in the ring.
Yeah. Just with the limited time we have, and I appreciate your guys' time and afternoon and the school year, you're training, even though the main season open, it always is ongoing training. I know Coach has responsibilities. I wanted to touch on something. I saw it's not just yourself and your family. I did a little research. You have a brother wrestling in the college level at Centenary, if I'm saying that right. And you have a sister wrestling at Campbellsville.
Yes.
We have the women's wrestling movement, which has been brewing for many years, but is really, hitting the ground running as we speak, just catapulting forward. Touch on just your thoughts, Chris, and right behind it, Coach. From what I've seen, there's from a, if you will, club level, kind of a women's thing starting to bud in the Cornell circles at the RTC level. Just that women's movement and how that promotes the sport. Even thinking of little sis's, it's a little sis, right?
No, she's older than me.
Sorry, older than. Just what you've experienced being a brother, watching her and the unique nature of the women's movement right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see the sport grow. The women's club, they've been practicing in our facility, and it's cool to see like them putting the work in after the hours and all that. I do wish that my sister was younger than me so that way she could have like this opportunity. She was a little older, so she missed out on a bunch of stuff. Like Jersey States didn't have a sanctioned state tournament for her. Yeah, I mean, I've always been an advocate of women's wrestling. She used to be my like main practice partner as a kid. So it's just great to see the sport moving in this direction. I'm a huge advocate for it.
Yeah. Coach, it's developing, right? You have to develop something. Yeah, I just saw where there was a clinic. It's actually my eyes. The first I saw recently, there was a little clinic, and I didn't realize there was such.
Yeah, so Division I women's wrestling, that organization there, they worked with us to set up a RTC day up at Cornell. So right now we have a women's club for women that attend Cornell University, right? And then we're moving that into our RTC as well, which will provide them with more opportunity for travel and attendance of high-end events. Some of the girls are going to be going to the U.S. Open in April out in Las Vegas. So, no, it's definitely growing. It's just, it takes time. And there's, it takes time to continue to build support and to, get the right people in the right positions, right, to make sure that you have good infrastructure. That's the big thing, right? If you don't have good infrastructure, right, your product, right, your organization is not going to be able to stand, right? It's not going to have solid footing, right? And we want to make sure that the women's wrestling, program here at Cornell has that. So we're going to take our time with it. We're going to continue to give as many opportunities as possible, right? So women that are eager and want to wrestle at Cornell will have opportunity, right? We're never going to take opportunity away from them, but we need to continue to build a great foundation for, a varsity program down the road.
I get you. Yeah. One thing, just because kind of this particular podcast about the sport, but being here in the New York, kind of a focus of New York, PA, local regional stuff. Not to say Jersey's right next door, so don't
Yeah.
two Jersey guys I'm talking to. But Coach, I know, as you well know, the history. Coach Vincent came up through a local high school, did his competing at Binghamton, had a short stint NC State, landed back. Well, actually, it was with you guys or Binghamton. I forget the exact flow.
He was with Binghamton for a year, and then was with us for 3 years, and then NC State, and now back with us.
But it's been back with you for some time. And, he's a product locally and has been had a foothold. And, of course, Coach Gwiz, who's, on the senior level competing and is helping you guys in the room and in the RTC and everything, was it originally a New York Albany high school man and did his thing at Binghamton before he did his thing at NC State at the high level. Just those guys as being, we already talked about, you have a great, mix of staff, but just then those guys having those New York connections, does that help in just those relationships with the high schools? I'm sure, right? Besides tapping into New Jersey and nationwide.
No, I mean, it's important. It's important to win your home state, right? And that's really, and it doesn't matter, I guess, what state you're in, right? You always want to be able to take the top talent. So we take pride in being able to, kind of pluck the brightest and the best talent from the state for sure. And I think, having Nick and Donnie being, New York guys, and even myself, right? I've been in Ithaca for 18 years now, so I'm a little bit of a hybrid, you could say, right?
Yeah.
A bit of a hybrid, but it helps with everything, right? It helps with, I guess you can call it talent acquisition, right? Getting a jump on these kids early. It helps with camps and clinics, right? So you can continue to grow your brand and also, give back to the wrestling community within the state. So there's lots of, positive things that come out of having, New Yorkers on your staff and the relationships that they built over, really a lifetime of being involved in New York wrestling for sure.
And of course, we're limited. We could go on for a long time, but it leads me to anyone you could share. I'm not well-versed, Coach, and who you have, coming through as either official as they can be signees or recruits and 24 looking ahead. I do know of one local gentleman, Tyler Ferrara out of Shenango Forks. I think is pretty much coming to the house, to the Cornell Big Red. If you could touch on it, you care about them all, and I would never dismiss anybody, but particularly any New York or PA products. I think there's a lot of family legacy always in Cornell. Is our brother of Mr. Furman out of Cannon Mac, PA, coming too?
Furman's brother, which is a great, great pickup for us. Obviously, Tyler, we're really excited about him. And these guys are connected to the program, which is great, right? I think when you have brothers, right? My brother wrestled here, the Simas brothers, you know what I mean? Obviously, Furman and, Owen Scott's or the Scott twins, sorry, of Mac, right? So we've had some really great group of some great families, I should say, and some groups of twins and brothers and all kinds of good stuff, right? So, no, I think it's great for us to, continue to bring families in and keep the lineage going. And I think it speaks well for us to be able to, have an older brother and then have a younger brother come, right? And then obviously down the road, I know Tyler has, a brother as well. So you never know.
You never know, right?
It's an exciting time, right? It's an exciting time to look to, get talent within the area, right? New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio. It's a great area. It's a really, really good area. There's some great wrestling in that area, and those are, areas that we recruit heavily. So,
yeah. Chris, I'll bring you to the conversation from the unique perspective of being a teammate in there. You're focused on what your job is and your bracket when it came, to be in Tulsa that weekend and all your training. But being a teammate of obvious, from a national perspective, you have your Yanni, the spotlight's on Vito, the spotlight's on. Even you were very talented coming. All the people are important. But obviously there was that 4-time thing going into the weekend of Yanni. Did you sense from him that he was just, ready to go, or pressure or anything like that? And I'll let Coach touch on, because just for people that might not know, we have Yanni Diakomahalis, very respected, a longtime wrestler in the world of wrestling, international, and doing his thing at Cornell. Was a 3-time champion. Now he's garnered that 4-time champion. Only 5 ever, right, Coach? And now 2 have the honor of wearing the Big Red C in Kyle Dake and Yanni. So that's super unique. But and then, being a teammate, what did you observe there, and just that as the season went into the weekend there?
Yeah, I was hanging out with him all weekend. Our rooms were actually conjoined, so me, Jacob, Vito, and Yanni were hanging out all weekend. There was really no stress from his standpoint. He was just ready to go out there and have a good time. So sitting in front of the finals, though, like watching that happen, it was really cool to be a part of. Vito turned it on. He looked the best I think I've ever seen him wrestle. I think personally, when he's on his best, I think he's the best in the world. And Yanni, when he won the 4th title, when those seconds were ticking down, we had a little group of us in the first 2 rows, and it was something special to be a part of for sure. And that sealed the 3rd place team trophy for us over Ohio State. So there's definitely a lot of emotion there. Yeah, I mean, it is something really cool to be a part of. I mean, this is also Mike's 2nd year as a head coach, so seeing how the progression of the team, I mean, all parts of the team too, have everybody contributing and seeing that pay off in the national stage.
Yeah, I'd assume because everyone knows in your own mind what work's been done, the many years of foundation, and what can be and what can't be. And I mean, you doing what you did obviously did huge things because some people might not have done as well as they could. So that was a big thing. I'm sure Coach would attest to. But again, I might have glossed over it. This year as a program, 2 champions. I mean, it's never a given until you have the seconds tick down and it's been secured. 2 champions as a program, individuals. A 3rd, another All-American. Ultimately, Coach, I'm sure, sloughs it up, but he became Coach of the Year. 3rd place. Heading to that, I know it's your guys' goal to be in that top 1 or 2. And
Vito got a W as well, right? So,
say again.
Said Vito got outstanding wrestler.
Right, and there you go too. It definitely was checked a lot of boxes, and not that was what you guys wanted. Oh, we're going to leave the weekend with this, but all the work's been done. Ultimately, manifests that way. I'm sure, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm a big proponent of the guys, coming home with hardware when they put all the work in, right? So I think it's great. I think it's great, but no, it was it's been 2 years brewing, if that makes sense, right? It's been everything that we've talked about and everything that we've worked. I wouldn't say talked into existence. We worked into existence, right? And like I talked about before with foundation and having to have a strong foundation, I think everything stems from, the programs are pillars of success, right? So humility, selflessness, accountability, 100% commitment to excellence, right? So being the best version of yourself every day. And then family, right? So a lot of programs talk about culture. We don't talk about culture because we have family, right? Our guys are part of this Cornell wrestling family. So that's really great. And I think that's what led to the success, right? And last year, I think that we had a lot of talent, but our guys just weren't ready quite yet. And that's okay. That's okay. Because I tell them all the time, you need to be where you need to be when you need to be there. Right. And we're going to have you where you need to be when you need to be there. Right. So it's, it's a bit of a tongue twister there, but it's just like, listen, just relax, believe in us, and if you do that, then you're going to be ready to perform at your best when you need to do. Yeah. And I think that's what we saw.
Yeah. You mentioned family. I was actually going to come back around because for some reason, when I kicked off this podcast, a theme on my heart that I'll always revisit is just the sport as a whole seems to be very family oriented. We touched on multiple brothers coming through your program. You guys know how it goes when you're yay high, your mom and dad or uncles and sisters or brothers are dragged to tournaments with their crayons. My very first episode was the daughter of my high school coach, Coach McClough. You knew of him, I think, Coach Gray, who's unfortunately passed. But now their little guy had finished high in North Carolina. The dad is an Ohio State alum, Mr. Pete Rogers. So it was really the theme there was family and just the uniqueness of being a daughter, now a mom, and all that around. And which brings me you have. I want you to touch on. I know you have a lot of support. You have Miss Kaylee, and you have two little ones at home, and I think they're mainstays in the room and around campus to these young men, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, family is obviously very, very important to our program. And, you mentioned, I guess folks growing up in wrestling, but I think with a lot of places, you kind of lose that, to be honest with you, when you get to the college ranks, because you have a bunch of, kids coming together. So we embrace the family more than ever. My kids are in the room all the time. Our guys are wonderful to my kids, to Donnie's kids. You know what I mean? So we really hang our hat on family, right? And one of our mottos is family, not factory, right? So it's like, hey, you want to go somewhere else or you want to go somewhere where you're just going to get pumped on through. You go to a factory, have at it, right? Whereas Cornell wrestling is a family. You're gonna get everything you need. Your mom's going to be, is going to feel good about dropping you off as a freshman and knowing that my wife and the other coaches' wives are going to take care of your kids, from an emotional standpoint or whatever it might be. We're going to do everything we can to help you become, the best version of yourself in the classroom, on the mat, develop you socially, give you opportunities to get great internships and, be part of the Cornell Wrestling Brotherhood, or network, whichever you prefer, to help you with job placement upon graduation, right? So we have so many things that are part of our family, and it really gives all of our student athletes opportunity, right? Because my job is to give opportunity, and it's their job to seize the opportunity, right? So every day I wake up and I think about how, it's different ways for different guys, but how can I give opportunity, right? I'm trying to give as much opportunity as possible so then, guys like Chris and the rest of the squad can take it and run with it. Like Chris, for instance, is doing an internship this summer down in Texas in real estate. And I know he's really excited, and he got that internship because of great alumni, and actually one of the guys I wrestled with in college and some others, right? So it's that family, it's that Cornell Wrestling Brotherhood, that Cornell Wrestling network, which is taking care of Chris this summer, and ultimately when he's done wrestling in life.
Yeah, those relationships. Chris, you touched on it in the example of when the seconds were counting down, and Yanni, Vito had already won. Now Yanni was getting that there was a warmth. Everyone felt that buzz. Not just, our guy did it, but like it was sort of a family heart thing probably. I know when your average person goes to a home duel at Friedman, it's not just because you guys need to. People that aren't even going to wrestle that day close, 4 deep on the roster, but they've been in the room. You guys they're all there cheering, but there's definitely a excitement for, dare I say, your brother out there rather than just, well, that's a buddy of mine wrestling. Right. I mean, it's exciting at those home duels in that sense, right? From a team perspective.
Yeah. I mean, we're not just a bunch of wrestlers joined by a team. We're a family for sure. We don't treat each other like a number. Like, you're not just a number in this program. Like, you have value for sure. And, I mean, I consider these teammates my brothers. Like, I love seeing them succeed, and it hurts when they don't. And, I mean, so you celebrate the successes with them as a family, and you work on the things you need to work on as a family. It really changes the dynamic of the room. Because, I mean, you look at guys like Yanni in the room, that like that talent, that level in the room raises so high, and the morale and the work ethic in the room rises with it. And I feel like that's really contributed to what we've been able to do and accomplish this year for sure. I mean, we have a world-class coaching staff. So putting that together, making that work ethic happen, I mean, the talent's only going to rise in the room. And with the guys coming in that have tremendous upside for sure, I mean, future's looking bright.
For the sake of time, I have in my mind just 3 topics to touch on. Just even if it's very brief, Coach, to put a pause on Cornell, I want to ask you something that you'll be able to touch on is I I highlight this podcast being about combat sports generically, wrestling being a huge focus on that. Your brother Mark, I know, is in the beginnings of a career in I think one of the feeder organizations for your UFC or Bellator picks, maybe specifically UFC. Cage Fury, I think his organization is.
CFFC.
Just being a brother, and he's focused on what he is, you are, but obviously you support him. That does touch on that a little bit, or if he has a fight coming up or anything, anytime in the horizon.
Yeah, so he's fighting. I think he's fighting the second week in May. His next fight is so. Usually takes some time off from I think right before Christmas until the high school season's over because he coaches in New Jersey. But no, he loves it. You know what I mean? I think that when he was finished with college wrestling, he still had a desire to compete. You know, and I think that he transitioned nicely into fighting, and he's really enjoying himself. He's undefeated, hasn't he hasn't gotten to the pinnacle yet at UFC or Bellator, but he's working hard and he's well on his way, and I'm excited to see him compete next. But no, I think that he's going to, especially with guys in that area, I know he's going to outwork everybody. I think that his work ethic is very special and unique to him. I don't think anybody can outwork him, period. It doesn't really matter what sport it is. So I know that he has a ton of experience in combat sport, we'll say, right? I think that helps him a lot leading into a fight. Granted, the other guy might have more experience fighting, but Mark has more experience dealing with, the we'll say pre-fight anxiety or, developing a routine, all the things that go into competing, right? Because competing is a skill in itself, right? Obviously fighting or wrestling, like that's the main skill, right? But the way that you prepare your body for a competition is a skill in itself. And Mark has, 20 something years of experience in that. And a lot of times that's what wins the day for him in these fights because these guys can't handle it. They've never competed before, right? At a super high level, especially in an individual sport. So he goes out there and they're struggling to breathe correctly and, things like that. And he just, gets on them and hammers them. So, but yeah, long story short, excited for Marky. He's got a bright future in MMA, and I know he enjoys it. And hopefully he'll be in the UFC here before long.
Yeah, that's good. Just for viewers, again, that's Mark Gray. It's going to be confusing. We have Coach Mike Gray, his brother Mark Gray, and yeah, that's exciting. Godspeed to him, in that pathway. We'll kind of button things up here shortly so we can keep you guys on your day's agenda. But just, I guess the last thing to throw out before I'll just close up is when we think of young wrestlers or somebody, I'm going to throw this out and each of you touch on it, but you, Chris, if you were to redo it and just you're wanting to be a high-level wrestler, when we think of a young person, a youth, what advice would you give them if there isn't anything different, or just what should be their kind of focus or theme if they want to ultimately be able to work to be a great young man, an adult, a wrestler, a human being, and end up landing at a quality program like you're honored to be able to be a part of, and then coach, how that relates to what you look for, what you'd advise young people trying to be doing a successful program.
Yeah, I'd probably start off with enjoy what you're doing. I mean, Mike could probably attest to this, but I always have a smile on my face, so it makes things a lot easier to do when you enjoy doing them. I almost stopped wrestling for a while when I was in middle school because I just didn't fully enjoy it anymore. But sticking with it, even on the hard days, definitely pays off in the long run. But yeah, I'd say enjoy what you do and put the work in because it's all going to pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, for us, no, I'm looking for guys that are, that are great workers that want to take themselves out of their comfort zone. And I think the biggest thing that you're going to learn from wrestling, at a young age is just, you're going to learn life skills, right? You're going to learn how to deal with adversity. And I think that's the best thing that you can take. And I don't think there's any other sport that prepares you for dealing with adversity, prepares you for dealing with tough situations as you grow, right? I mean, you take Chris, for instance, right? Like I said before, the growth that he experienced and the adversity that he dealt with to become, a third place finisher this year, that's going to stick with him for life, right? And that's what this is all about. This whole thing is all about that, right? So I guess my advice for a young kid is to stick with it. When the going gets tough, don't pack up and take off, right? Don't just quit the sport, right? I know it's going to be challenging, and I think there has to be boundaries, right? Like, if your folks are forcing you to go to practice, 7 days a week for 5 hours a day, then yeah, I would quit too, right? It's all relative, and if it's if it's all in good spirits, we'll say, and you just don't like how you're maybe losing or whatnot. No, that's not a reason, right? That's not a reason to quit. Stay the course. Deal with the adversity. Learn the lessons that this sport can give you, and if you don't continue to fight through it, then you're not going to learn those lessons, and more importantly, use them later on in life when you're trying to be a leader and when you're trying to affect change for groups as you get older, right?
Yeah.
This sport teaches you how to be a mentor real quick.
Cool. And we'll close it up, I guess, briefly for time, Coach. Where are things going next? We're happy with the success celebration you had. I'm sure you are. You welcome it. But, where we're going next,
Yeah, no, I mean, for us, we're going to the U.S. Open next, right?
Yeah.
We're transitioning to freestyle. We're looking for, a lot of guys to make the senior world team, right? Vito, Yanni, Nick, right? Looking for senior world team berths. And then I know there's a whole slew of guys that are looking to make the U23 world team as well.
Right.
And win medals, right? So for us, it's always about, and it's the nature of being a high-end competitor. It's always looking for the next thing, unfortunately. So it's enjoying what we did and really taking great satisfaction in the job we did in Tulsa, but not resting on that, right? Trying to get out there and attack what's next, right? And for us, it's that freestyle stuff, and it could be, if like Chris, for instance, it's not going to be competing because he's got that wonderful internship we talked about. So his big goal is going to be, adding new techniques, sharpening skills, you know what I mean? Just becoming even more, engulfed in the sport and becoming even more of a technician, right? So there's ways to become great every day in whatever you do, right? And that's what I preach to these guys. Every day you got to do something that's going to challenge you mentally. It doesn't have to be a crazy workout, but you need to answer the bell every day and deal with some adversity every day to make yourself great, right? And that's really what we're doing. So that's what's next for us, answering that bell every day and trying to become the best version of ourselves every day.
Just being a little humorous here, Chris. On that internship, just don't put a real estate client in that cow catcher, chin whip, Chris Foca hybrid, whatever that I see. You duplicated it twice.
Navigator, baby.
Right, there you go. I know. You duplicated it twice, so it's not a fluke there in the national stage and getting a couple big falls. But that just leads me to, we'll button this up. I went a little bit over, Coach, but I always want to end my podcast on one thing. Even Coach Gray would know this person, I think. He was a booster, a ticket holder. A gentleman locally, Mark Stevens, was a huge proponent of wrestling. His brother Mike is a booster still there most often at Friedman Center. But his big phrase was always in the spirit of the sport. And he was kind of from afar, a big mentor of mine. And then my school coach, Coach McClough, would always leave us, his teams, forever and a day. People like Colin McDonald, alumni there at Cornell, myself, long before us. Holidays especially, but just every once in a while, he'd really highlight, hey, gentlemen, as it'd be a hard practice leaving, doing all the A's and B's. And he says, gentlemen, go home and hug your mom. So whether you can in spirit or they're not with us, go home and hug your mom, Chris, call her, FaceTime her, even you, Coach Mike, or by extension, maybe Miss Kaylee. So just viewers, hug your mom. And thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We'll end it there, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.